Hey there, thanks for joining me again. Right now we are going to start working on another painting. The previous painting was pretty cool. It was our first one in the series, and you're going to want to go back and learn that painting before you do this one. And when I mean learn, I don't mean practice it till it's perfect. I mean understand the techniques that are there. Today what we're going to do is a lot of blending, and then we're going to practice some fine lines. You're going to want a bigger brush. You're going to want one at least this large. This is a number 3 and a 5/8. Really what you want is you want to make sure that it's bigger than your thumbnail. That's a good rule of thumb when you're doing this. Okay, so much bigger than your thumbnail if you can, but at least as big as your thumbnail, a little bit bigger. So these ones have been provided in your packet, which is your flat brush, which we used in our last lesson, and then our filbert brush. What's the difference? Flat brush is flat like a square, turn it to the side, looks like a little knife. Filbert is rounded on the top, turn it to the side, it's flat like a little knife. Do different things. This makes nice lines, this blends out. So what we're gonna wanna do is we're gonna wanna use the filbert today. So the first thing we're gonna do is we are gonna use wet on wet, a little bit to start out on, and we're gonna go ahead and get some water. Bring your water closer to you. Remember to clean your brush out up and down, just in case you have anything left over from painting before. You're going to go ahead and fill in the circle on your canvas with water. Now, to get a perfect circle, or one that looks pretty nice anyway, you don't really even need that in this kind of painting, but I just put it on there to kind of help you to start out with, because a lot of people get nervous. I just trace a bowl or a cup. It's no big deal. Ain't no thing like a chicken wing. So go ahead and cover that up. And we're going to go ahead and let it sit for just a second. Let's do a moon. Ooh, let's do that instead. Let's do kind of a night sky-ish one. We'll do that. So what we're going to do here is we are going to go ahead and we are going to get some of our blue. We'll put it over here so we can see it. Hopefully you can see it. Scooch this up a little bit. There you go. And I'm going to go ahead and get some of my white. I have my little mixing plate over here. I'm going to go ahead and put some of my white off to the side right down here. And for you, this is probably a garbage bag that you're using at home. Remember, if you paint with a garbage bag underneath you, when you're all done, you can roll it up and throw it out, or you can wipe it down and reuse it. So I'm gonna go ahead and grab just a teensy little bit of blue there, not a lot. I'm gonna mix it in there so I get kind of a skyish blue color. Pretty. All right. So what I'm gonna do is, now that I have my wet in there, I'm gonna start in the middle, and I'm gonna go around in circles like this, like a spiral. I'm just gonna go out and spiral around, like so. Going around and spiraling in. Okay, so it's a real pale blue color. I'm gonna go and pick up pure paint and go right outside of my circle. And you can use long brush strokes like this all the way around, or you can use little short choppy ones like this too. That's okay. Now, if you have trouble with your hands, and our hands don't work as well as our shoulder does to make circles, it's harder for our hands to make circles and make it look good and feel comfortable if it's a bigger circle. So what you can do is you can lift your hand up, pretend you're a robot, beep boop, beep boop, and use your shoulder and your body to move around. This is also good because it gives you a little bit of exercise when you paint. There's lots of different ways to do it. There's no right way to paint. It's whatever works for you. So we're gonna go around in this circle here. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna take a little bit of blue, again, and we're gonna add it to this blue over here. A little bit more, just a little bit at a time. And we're gonna go on the outside of this circle. And we're doing this kind of quickly. Putting that down like that. And we're gonna make kind of a big hoop around it like this. Okay, and what we're gonna do next is we're gonna clean off our brush. We don't want a lot of water in there. Blending is like doing the cha-cha. You take a couple steps forward and then a couple steps back. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna get a little bit of white, and we're gonna go right on the edge here, see, right between these two colors. And we're gonna go like this, around, like that. Get some more white on this side, around like that. Now, when we're doing a gradient, you can have it go from very light to very dark. You can have it be very smooth if you practice a lot and go around and around and do the cha-cha a lot with your colors, or you can be it kind of choppy. It's okay. Either way is fine, because what we're trying to accomplish is we want to see light to dark, and we're doing that through different ways of using our paint. So what we're going to do next is clean off our brush. And for this, you have to work a little fast. It doesn't have to be real fast, but a little fast. If you're somebody who has a hard time moving their body and it takes a little bit of time, or if you get nervous and you're not sure if you feel like you can drag around and whatever it is, add water to your background first, and then go ahead and do what we're doing, okay? So what we're gonna do here is we're gonna go ahead and add some more blue to this over here. It's gonna get a little bit darker blue instead of a sky blue. And this time we're gonna add the teensiest little bit of black, the smallest little bit of black, little tiny bit, just a little dip in the corner there. Well, I need a little more than that. Didn't want to stick to my brush. There we go. We're gonna make that kind of a dusky blue there. So we're coming out right here, going around in a circle. And I'm using the thick part of my brush. I'm using the flat part of my brush like this when I'm doing this. This is very helpful. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start to go back towards the middle like this. I'm creeping in like this, creeping, like so, getting closer and closer. It's okay if you drag some of that color out with you. See how it's starting to glow a little bit? Okay. Looking good so far. You're doing a good job. If yours looks even a little bit like this, you're doing a good job of a radial blend to start out with. Okay, what we want next is we want it to get even darker on the outside. So we add more blue, add it to the bottom down here, not right in the middle. You'll see why in a minute. We want a pretty decent amount. And then we're going to go over here and get some more black, add it in. Okay, so it's a much darker blue. I'm going to go on the outside here. Who's that pretty color? Making a big hoop using our shoulder muscles if we can. If not, that's okay. Going around in a circle like so. And then what we want to do is we want to get off the extra paint. So we want to go ahead and go up and down and swirl. Plunge and swirl, plunge and swirl. Get off the extra, and then we're going to go right here in between those two colors and do the cha-cha, which means you go a little bit backwards and a little bit forward when you're doing this. So go a little bit backwards and a little bit forward. A little bit forward, a little bit backwards. Cha-cha-cha. Going around like this, looks good. Okay. Now what we need is we need pure blue. So you want to find a spot over here. Pure blue, all by its lonesome. Okay. And then a nice chunk of black, all by its lonesome. No white, don't add any white to this. I'm gonna get a nice navy color. Ooh, that might be too navy. Gonna have to go back and get a little bit more blue. Put a little bit of blue there. There we go. We want a nice dark navy blue. We don't want it almost black, not yet. And then I'm going to go out here in this corner like this. Here we go, going around. I'm going to scooch this off a little bit. Going around in a circle, going around in our circle like so. Going around like this. And a nice track of wet paint going. Looks good. Okay. Get the extra off of my brush. I don't even have to wipe it, I just squeegeed it out with paper towel. And I'm going to go back and forward, back and forward. Doing that all the way around, using the fat part of my brush. Let it lay down, let that brush do some work for you. That's what it's there for. Okay, going all around like that. Nice job. Okay. So we're starting to get a good glow here, but we need to finish out the edges, right? So what we want to do there is we want to go ahead and get black all by its little lonesome right here. And we're going to go right on the outside of that. We're going to paint the rest of the painting on the outside black. Okay, so we're going to paint the outside here, like the little triangles that come down. We're going to paint those all black. Don't use a ton, just enough to cover your canvas. Remember, you're in charge of your paint. Your paint's not in charge of you. That's the thing that you gotta remember when you're painting this. So if you use too much paint, it makes it really hard for you to paint. So don't give control to your paint. You hold on to your control. Uh-oh. Guess there's a branch there. Going around with that black all the way around the whole painting, the outside. All right, and just like before, now black is very strong. So we want to make sure that we really flatten it out, that we don't have big chunks of paint. If you have extra on your canvas, you want to kind of scoop it off, smooth it down, get it off there. And then what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and clean off our brush straight up and down. Get the extra water off. This is important. You don't want too much water. I squeezed it in between. And I'm going to do the cha-cha on the outside of my colors now. My dark blue and my black. Do not bring it in far. Don't start going all the way up here. You're not going to like it. It's going to get real muddy like a big old mess. So the outside here like this. There you go. Nice and gentle. Using the big thick side of our brush. Around like so. Remember, use those shoulder muscles if you can. And see how I do kind of longer strokes like this on the outside? Why do little strokes like that unless you like the brush marks? I kind of do like the brush marks, honestly, but we're not doing that right now. We'll save that for some impressionism. Okay, so it looks pretty good. I'm going to go back into the middle now. Okay, I'm going to get the extra off here, like so. I'm going to put my little brush off to the side, and I'm going to go over here and try to get this little bit of black off of there. Sometimes what you can do is you can scrub a little bit, so we'll come back to that in a second. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to go back into the middle, and I'm going to firm up my white there. So all I'm doing is going ahead and kind of adding white back into the middle, trying to keep it a good circle. Don't get nervous about your edges. If it starts to freak you out, just stop for a second, take a deep breath. And just gently drag along. Okay, if your hand shakes a little bit, that's okay too. It's all right. It'll just look like it's a cloudy night. Okay, so what we're gonna do here is we're gonna go ahead and we are gonna go ahead and add just a teensy bit of a little bit of these marks here and make it look like the moon. So what you wanna do is you get just a teeny little bit. You don't need a lot. A little tiny bit like this of the dark blue, bluish black. If you have any left, or make a little bit, one of these little blues over here, or a couple of them. You want just a little bit on there, enough that you can see it shiny on your finger. And what you're going to do is you're going to mark all the way around like this on your moon, here and there, like so. Get yourself a little bit more. A little bit here and there. You want to see it kind of smush down like so. And we'll come back out in a couple minutes when it dries, just a little bit more to add in some different things here. Okay, so once you have it looking a little bit like that, you're going to go ahead and stop for a second, wipe off your finger, and what we're going to do now is we're going to come out here and create a little bit of some stars. Now there's lots of different ways to use stars, to make stars. You can use a little tiny brush like this, a round brush that has a point, okay? But the easiest way to do that, to kind of actually get it done so it feels like it doesn't take forever and gets boring, is you take the end of your brush, gently dip, okay? And straight up and down in different spots. Okay, and you want to keep those the top part like this. You can probably get 10 to 12 stamps out of each one. And you can bring them in a little bit into your moon up here, but you don't need a lot of them. Just a little bit here and there. If you really feel like taking your time, you can go dot. Make little tiny guys everywhere. That's totally up to you. Okay, so we're going ahead and adding those in everywhere like this. All throughout, you can add just a little bit as it gets closer to the moon like that, but not too much, okay? Because otherwise it'll look like snow. So I'm gonna go ahead and clean off the end of my brush. You can do that in either your hand like that, or you can do it on a paper towel. I like to do it on my hand because I like to make sure it's clean, so I know that I got all of it off. Because I don't trust paper towels sometimes when it comes to that. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna wait about 3 minutes, and then we're gonna come back and do some more. Okay, so go ahead and pause your video for a moment and wait about 3 minutes until your moon is totally dry. Now that you're done with that, what you're gonna do is you're gonna go ahead and add back in some more white on top of those different areas, and you're gonna stick to one side of your moon while you're doing that in kind of a C shape. So you can do it this way or that way, whichever you want, but stick to one side of your moon. I like to kind of outline it a little bit on one side like this. Real gentle, like that. And then smush marks like this into the middle. So those are stipples, remember? We talked about those in our last painting. Stippling is going straight up and down like this in a piston motion like you're a robot, but when you do it, you go bop, bop, bop each time. And you do it real gentle. Don't smash hard if you can help it. There's no need. Okay, and then add a couple little guys over here, here and there. There you go. You have a nice, beautiful, glowing moon now, and it is ready for a tree. But first, before we plant a tree, we really need some ground down here. So how do you do that if it's nice and dark outside? How are you going to see the ground or your tree? I'm going to show you. What we're going to do is we're going to take some of the blues that are over here, or you can make some. If you're nervous, it's okay. I'll show you how to make one. So I'm going to scoot this up just a little bit along with our example. And I also went ahead and changed the colors on here so you can see that they match now the color scheme that we decided to go with. I just didn't feel like doing another sun painting. We just did one, right? So we decided to do a beautiful moon. So it went from blue to white, light blue, brackish blue, which means kind of a dusky blue, dark blue, and then a blackish up here, right? So what we're gonna do is we're gonna take a little bit of this regular blue here, okay? I'm gonna go ahead and pick some up, put it to the side right there. I'm gonna grab just a little tiny bit of black. You don't need a lot. Add it together there, okay? And then I have a little bit of white that I'm gonna add in, like so. All right, there we go. Now what we're gonna do is we're gonna get the extra off. So pull it through a piece of paper or on your palette. And then what we wanna do is we want to have a wiggly line that goes like this. Don't go way up high, okay? So a wiggly line that goes like this at the bottom of our painting, kind of goes up high in one spot and then comes back down low. And it can look like whatever you want as long as it's got one little hump that's at least a little higher, okay? And I'm gonna show you how to dry brush. Remember we talked about how we would be doing this painting, this is the last one? So a dry brush sounds exactly what you think it is. You need a dry brush. Not totally dry, but almost totally dry of paint. So what you do is you get the extra paint off by squeezing it between or dabbing it like this. And you're gonna do this for a while, wherever you have a little bit of paper towel there. Bop it around like this. And what you wanna do is you wanna be able to see that it's flavored with just a little bit of paint on there. It looks like just a little dash, a teeny little dash. And what you're gonna do is you're gonna come underneath here and don't press hard. You're gonna scribble like this. Scribble, scribble from where the paint's still wet, like that. Scribble right on top there, back and forth. Real gentle, like so. Okay, now that you have that, you're gonna come over here and turn your brush sideways like this so it's flatter, and then flip it over and scumble. Remember we said scumbling was, what was it? Scribbling, that's right, it's scribbling with a paintbrush. But instead of going straight up and down, you kind of go sideways. So do the same thing over here, scumble, scumble, And we're doing a scumble with a dry brush because we like that it brings up some brightness, like the moonlight's hitting it. But it's not really complex, and it's a nice beginner technique that we can use. So we're gonna scumble more towards the top there, and then pick one little hump down here and make kind of a little hump shape somewhere, and then go ahead and scumble underneath that a little bit more too. All right, there we go. Now we have a little bit of land down there. Now we want to highlight our land just a tiny bit, and a highlight is the brightest part. So if you watch the drawing videos, you know a highlight is a lighter part right there. So we're just going to touch a little tiny bit. We don't want a lot. You just want to pixie toe it, bloop, just like that. Just a little tiny touch right there. And then all we're going to do here is we're going to gently tap, tap, tap along the top of our ground. You want to do that there, and then kind of the little area that you have here. Remember, it's important not to use a lot because moonlight isn't that intense. And you're just going to go ahead and stipple at the top there. Stippling is that, remember, like this. There you go. A little bit here and there, like that. I'm going to turn that brush so you don't get the same thing over and over again. I'm going to do that down here some places, here and there. Find a couple little spots. A little bit of scumbling here and there. Have some fun with it. All right, that looks pretty good to me. Now, what we're going to do here is we're going to have to change our brush in a minute. Okay, so let's put our brush in our water. Want to make sure we swirl it around a little bit before we set it in there. When you're not using your brush and it still has a little bit of paint on it, make sure you always put it in your water, because otherwise you can ruin your brush. All right, so what we're going to do next is we're going to look over here, and in your paint set, there should be a brush that is marked as, let's see here, there's a couple of them. This one will work best. It is called, this one doesn't have a number on it, you can barely see it. It's a number 12 round, okay? But really what you want it to look like is you want it to be as long as one of your fingernails or your thumbnail. That's even better if you can get one as long as your thumbnail, okay? And you want it to be kind of long and pointy. Now you want to wake this brush up. If this is straight out of your packet, mine is, so that means we got to set in there for a second, swirl it and twirl it. And when you're using a styrofoam cup like this one, be careful, because if it's really stiff, it'll go right through, and then woo, you have problems. Pew, that would be all over my painting. Okay, tapping it. Now when it comes out, brushes are lazy. They don't like to do work, even though that's their job, okay? Their job is to do this work for you because they're a tool. So right now, it's being all lazy and it's not keeping its shape, all right? So we need to send it to the gym, get it in shape. So what we're gonna do here is we're gonna roll it in our paper towel, get the extra paint or water out, and then we're gonna roll it in our fingertips like so, nice and gentle, so that we have a nice tip like that. Now what we wanna do is we want to go over and get a little bit of black paint. And let's see, this paint's pretty thick now because it's been sitting. All right, you can see it's kind of goopy. Now when paint sits for a while, it gets much thicker. That's what happens because it dries. It's starting to dry. So what we want to do is we're going to add some water into the side here. And actually, if you want, you can go ahead and pick up your water with a big brush and go dot, dot, dot like that into your black. A couple of dots like this. Maybe do this like 7 or 8 times. All right, put this off to the side. I'm gonna get out my brush again, the one that we just talked about, the one that we made nice and pointy. And I'm gonna mix my black all around so it's more watery. It's kind of like ink now, okay? So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead and rotate my brush like this. I'm gonna rotate it. If you can't rotate it, it's okay. You can always drag your brush on a piece of paper like this and turn it while you drag it. So if you have trouble with that, that's okay too. All right, so trees are V's and Y's. If we look over here, you can see it says V's and Y's. Okay, so to start out with, what you want to do is you want to find the little hill where there's a hump, and you're gonna set your brush and you're gonna drag it. Okay, and as you get to the end, you're gonna flick it up like that. Okay, so these type of brushes are not really meant to be pushed. Okay, this brush doesn't push like this. Never push a brush like this. This is not that kind of brush. This is a dragging technique, okay? So we set it down here and we go up, just let it drag across and off like that, a wobbly line, okay? Now I'm gonna come up here and I'm gonna make a Y. Now it doesn't have to break off the same spot up there. It just means it's a line and then another line comes off of it. So I'm gonna go ahead and put a line like that. Okay, now what we're gonna do over here is we're gonna make these thicker. So this line up here is nice and thin. So what we need to do is we need to start right there and we're gonna press down thicker as we go. We're gonna press down harder. See how my brush spreads out like that? If you have a hard time with that, you can use the Eiffel Tower technique, which is you make a long, pointy, wobbly A, a letter A, like this, okay? And then you fill in the letter A like that. At the bottom, it's real easy to make roots. You get to the edge and you wiggle, wiggle, wiggle. Down here, wiggle, wiggle, wiggle. In the middle somewhere, wiggle, 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 wiggle. Just find wherever there's a little edge that comes out that's kind of pointy and wiggle, wiggle. And then these little guys over here, gentle touch, wiggle, 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 wiggle. So you're making upside down Ys and Vs. Okay, there you go, nice job. Now what we're gonna do is we're gonna thicken this one up. We're gonna come over here, we're gonna start at the bottom, and we're gonna go up like that. And then we're gonna go bloop, off to the side with it. And notice how when I'm doing this, I'm dragging it, I'm not pushing, and I'm also not pressing hard. I'm just letting it go across the surface, okay, until it's time to do that. Now I want one to go across my beautiful moon. A lot of times people want to avoid their moon, kind of like right here. No way, Jose, you got to go all the way through your moon like this. So let's find another one. Come down here. Oh, it's going to be so bright and beautiful when we're done. Going back over it. There we go. Now, all I have to do is make more V's and Y's. So I have a couple of lines here, and I'm going to start a line in one of my trees, and I'm going to wiggle it like that. I'm going to start a line here, and I'm going to wiggle it. I'm going to start a line right here, and I'm going to wiggle it. I'm going to start a line right there, and I'm going to wiggle it. Wiggle it just a little bit. Starting over here, find another line, wiggle it. Now that you have some of those, you want to bring out some other lines. You can leave it stark like this, so it looks kind of like almost like Halloweenish, or you can add more on, okay? So if you're scared of that, you can change to a different brush, okay? I like using the longer brushes because it does all the work for you. It follows you like a puppy, like so. But if you're scared, you can change to a smaller brush. There's nothing wrong with that. So I'm going to show you with a smaller brush, okay? I'm going to wake up my brush a little bit. I have to do the same thing where I get him pointy. I'm going to draw it through my black paint like this, and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to go up here, and I'm just going to wiggle. Oop, I got a lot of paint on that one. Up here, and I'm just going to wiggle. And wherever there are these branches, I am going to just wiggle them. Find a spot and wiggle. If you get a little skipper like that, just go back over it. It's no biggie. Find another spot, wiggle it just a little bit. Going through here. Oops, I did a little skipperoo. Guess that guy will go right there. And you can add as many as you want, and they can get all the way small off these other little branches if you want to. Like so. That guy is a little wobbly. We're gonna make him a little thicker. There you go. And if you get a branch that's too thick, you can always make it thinner. Or I'm sorry, too thin, you can always make it thicker, okay? All right, and I feel like we need a big, strong branch coming across this way. I don't feel like that's strong enough. So I'm gonna go over it a little bit. that. And if that branch is real strong, that means this tree needs to get stronger. It has to get a little thicker. Send it to the gym, make it get swole. There you go. And then we want some little branches over here because it looks really nice coming off the moonlight. There you go, looks beautiful. So we're gonna let that sit for a second, okay? So don't do anything right now. Let it sit for a minute. Give it a couple moments, about 5 minutes. What we're gonna do next is we're gonna add a little bit of light into our tree. Now the brightness is on the other side of the tree, so technically we're gonna add it a little bit on the sides down here, but up here we're gonna add it a little bit in the middle, just to make it pop out. So what we wanna do is we wanna make a gray. Gray is very easy. You want some white, put it down here, and a little bit of black. We want kind of a medium gray. We don't want that, that's too bright, so add a little bit more black. There we go, that's about what we're looking for. And sometimes people have trouble judging values when they're doing color. So I'm gonna show it to you. I'll bring it up so you can kind of see the color. I'll even put it next to the tree so you can see. Now I'm gonna go ahead and roll it through here. Okay, and what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take my brush like a pencil and I'm gonna use just the tip. I don't press down, okay? And I'm gonna make little lines here and there all throughout my tree, just a little bit, little dashes. And they're going the same direction that the rest of the tree is. So they're going up like this throughout some of the branches. They don't have to go all the way to the tippy tops. No way, they do not have to do that. Don't worry about that, okay? No tippy tops here. Just little dashes here and there, all throughout the main parts of the tree. So those are the big, thicker branches, okay? You don't have to do them throughout everything. Your brain's smart enough that it goes, hey, I've seen a tree before. I know that it's rounded, so you don't have to do that. Our brain does a lot of the work for us in painting. Okay. And we'll do that even in some of our roots down there. Get little touches like that, little bips and bops on some of them. So it looks like they're kind of catching some light, little gentle little bips and bops. Bips and bops are kind of important because they make it look like the moonlight is picking up on some of the branches. Here and there, like so. And then when you have all these complicated branches over here, don't worry about those. You want those to kind of get lost in the painting anyway. Okay, once you have that, you get rid of the paint that's on your brush, up and down, and then get rid of the extra water that's on your brush through your paper towel. And then you want to take pure white, all by itself, just a little tiny spit on your brush, and very gently on the outside of your tree, real small bits. You don't want to use too much. I kind of used a lot. I have to go back and fix that. There you go. You want to use it just on the outside of the tree like this. And that's going to make it look like it picked up a little bit of moonlight over there. And you can do that on some of the bigger branches that are out this way. Don't worry about the branches that are right next to the moon. It seems like it would make more sense, but you wouldn't see them because they're right against the moon. They just kind of blend in with the moon. So we only put them on the left side, the side that's closest to the moon, on some of our bigger branches out this way. Just a tiny bit. You don't need much. Just a little bit here and there. Little skip-a-doos. And if you have a white gel pen, this also works pretty good for that. Okay, so that looks pretty good. And then we can also add just a teensy little bit back into our ground down here if you want. You can do a dry brush. There's barely anything on my brush right now. Go down here. Add some there. Sure, why not? Little scumble. Little scummy little scumble. All right, looking good. Now, what you're gonna do for this next part is you're gonna need a piece of paper. Okay, if you have a piece of paper that's a little stiffer, like a piece of junk mail, that's even better. And I'm going to show you why. Okay, so what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to get out a scrap piece of paper. Actually, get out 2 scrap pieces of paper. One's going to be for stamping, and the other one is going to be to go ahead and paint on. Okay, so here's a scrap piece of paper. Okay, it's a little stiffer. It's not cardstock, but it'll do. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to come up here and I'm going to measure and see, make sure it doesn't go into my land down here. I want it to kind of be like that. Perfect. So if you don't have one this size, just cut it. I'm going to get my big flat brush out. I'm going to get all extra water off of it. This is real important, okay? And what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab some black from my paint, drag it through, okay? And I'm going to come down here and I'm going to go ahead and turn my brush this way like this. Let's do it right about there. Go across like that. Make a little mark, and you're probably thinking, oh no, why are we doing this? I'll show you. So I'm going to make sure it lines up with there. That's the same length. I might have to cut mine a little bit. I think I have to. Okay, there we go. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to take my black paint and I'm going to gently tap, tap, tap. I'm not going like this. Use the thick side of your brush to tap, tap, tap like that. Tap, 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 tap. There you go. So we have our line going across like this. Let me go ahead and reinforce that so it's nice and thick. Beautiful. All right. And then you can use the piece of paper technique, or you can use this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure that it's nice and straight here. And I can use my flat brush to go straight up like this. Just use little dots like that. And it makes it look like it's a little rope or a chain link fence. It looks really cute. Okay. And the other way is, or not chain link fence, a little chain link chain. The other way is using your piece of paper. Now my hands are very wobbly today, so if you're a person whose hands wobble, I would suggest not using this. I'm not going to use it today because I have shaky hands today. And for some things, shaky hands, you have to use a tool just because your hands are being kind of difficult with you. So for this, you can go straight up and down and just stamp, and that will give you the same type of thing, okay? But you want to make sure that it's a really thick paper, not this kind of bloop flexi paper, okay? I'm going to go ahead and finish this out like that by just gently touching, going straight up like that with those, okay? And then if you want to add a little thing at the bottom like this, looks like the rope comes out, and then you can add the tiniest little bit of white onto your swing, like so. A little bit here and there. And there you have it. That's your painting. So this is a radial painting, which means circular, okay? And it's a gradient painting, which means light to dark. So it is a radial gradient, starting from brightest to darkest. So we started in the middle when we did the white and the blue. Then we went to light blue here, brackish blue, dark blue, and then black. Then we put in our ground, and we used dry brushing, right? We used a flat brush or a filbert brush down here. We went ahead and pockmarked our moon with our fingers, and then we added some white back in over here and did some stippling right there. We put in some stars with the end of our brush, dot, 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 okay? And then we went over and we had a long brush, a long round brush, and we went ahead and made our V's and our Y's, remembering to wiggle it just a little bit, huh. And then we painted across right here, and then we made sure to go straight up and down with our flat brush. We also add in, if you want to, and you didn't do this already, you can add in a little bit of these different highlights. Remember, highlights are the brighter parts of something. Well, I hope you had a good time. It's a really good practice. And remember, as always, you're just beginning. Don't get frustrated. Give it a chance. If you need to, stop the video at any point. Remember, this is something you can watch over and over again. And if you make a mistake, who cares? You can either paint over it, or just leave it like that and learn from it. Painting is a mistake game, which means you make mistakes and then you learn from them. You learn how to fix them, just like the rest of life. You got this. I'll see you next lesson. Good job.